The PPF, what do we know about the PPF so far? Reviewing from previous lectures, we know that all of the points that fall directly on the PPF are possible. That is, they're efficient. All resources are fully being utilized. Points that fall under the PPF, like F, are possible, but they represent inefficiency. There are resources that are not being utilized. For example, workers are unemployed, factories are sitting idle. Points that are above the PPF, like G, are not possible. Moving along a PPF involves shifting resources from the production of one good to another good. Society faces a trade-off. So if you want to get more of one good, you're going to have to sacrifice some of the other good because you only have so many resources. The slope of the PPF represents the opportunity cost of one good in terms of the other good. So here we have the PPF. If we were to calculate the slope of the PPF, we'd have to calculate the rise over the run. So that would be 1,000 over 100, and that would be a negative number. So that means the opportunity cost of one computer equals 10 tons of wheat. In other words, if you want to produce one more computer, you're going to have to give up 10 tons of wheat. Applying what you learned in the previous slide, look at each of these two countries, France and England, and answer in which country is the opportunity cost of cloth lower. Okay, I'm going to give you the answer here. It's England because its PPF is not as steep. Notice you could have calculated the rise over the run like we did in previous slides, but that's the hard way. The question, I did not ask you for a numerical value. So there's an easier way to get the answer. You can eyeball these to determine which PPF is steeper. From the graphs, it's pretty easy to see that England's PPF is not as steep as France, and therefore the opportunity cost of cloth is lower in England than in France. Okay, remember that the PPF shows the trade-off between the outputs of different goods at a given time, but that trade-off can actually change over time. And how does that happen? With additional resources or some improvement in technology. That would allow the economy to produce actually more computers or more wheat or some combination. So that's what this slide is showing. The resources have grown, so there is an economic growth or a shift of the PPF that goes from this black line here out toward the new PPF, which is in red. What about the shape of the PPF? If the PPF is a straight line, the opportunity cost is constant. So in our previous example, the opportunity cost of one computer is 10 tons of wheat. But what happens if the opportunity cost is bowed outward? That represents increasing opportunity costs. So in other words, as more units of a good are produced, we need to give up increasing amounts of the other good that's produced. Why might the PPF be bowed outward? As the economy shifts resources from Gatorade to mountain bikes, the PPF becomes steeper. So it's flat up here and then it becomes steeper. And the opportunity cost of bikes increases. So at point A, most workers are producing Gatorade, even those who are better suited to building bikes. So this economy does not have to give up much Gatorade to get more bikes at point A. At point B, most workers are producing bikes. The few that are left in Gatorade production are the best producers of Gatorade. Producing more bikes would require shifting some of the best Gatorade producers away from Gatorade production, causing a big drop in Gatorade output. So the PPF is bowed outward when you have different workers that have different skill sets, different opportunity costs of producing one good in terms of the other, or there is some other resource or a mix of resources with varying opportunity costs. So you have different types of land, for example, that are suited for different uses. What's the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics? Microeconomics studies households and firms and how they make decisions interacting in markets, and macroeconomics you can think of as the big picture. So looking at things like inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. Economists act as policy advisors. A positive statement is descriptive. It attempts to describe the world as it is. Confirm or refute by looking at evidence. So minimum wage laws cause unemployment. A normative statement is prescriptive. Attempt to prescribe how the world should be. The government should, in fact, raise the minimum wage. That would be an example of a normative statement. Take a look at these statements, these 4 statements, and determine whether the statements are positive and normative, and how can you tell the difference. And we will discuss this in class.